Hello and welcome to Walk and Talk. The day on the alien calendar is 3/2/23/2141, and that means the date on the Gregorian calendar is Monday, March 9th, 2026. Today I would like to talk about the movie Hoppers because I want to make things a little bit more referential, reluctantly, and I think that it's very important to notice that it goes about its message with a very bad assumption, which is necessary for the emotional payoff, but it's also not helpful to nature. Now, I have here a script written in Anguli, so to be in the interest of my own world, I'm going to say it and then translate it. It says, Selu hahalg gaanlia en kokoi haperg, which means, how are we going to match to Anlia because of hoppers? Theme goa, major theme. Langog ke mepithu Langalg og for La Anga. So the theme is humans compete, it's Langalg, it's Langolg compete through Langangolg for La Anga. So it's humans compete with nature for land. And that would be an interesting point to Anlia if it worked in reality. Because the central theme of the movie is, of course, getting land back from humans to go to nature because of urban sprawl. But the interesting thing is, actually, it seems like, when you actually look into science, the more separate humans are from nature, the better it is for nature. Cities are smaller ways to contain more people, so having the people out among nature might actually be more land taken away from nature. And counterpoint 1. Coco whale gog use coelg le hoch gelang coing anga. So that means people use less energy in cities than they do in the country. And to help confirm or deny this, I talked to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT said, Hilch coco true, ang kokoi whale gog anga koing wak, which means that when you have a small environment with more people, there's less walk, which is driving around, so you don't have to drive as far. And then also there's more public transportation, so you have most people just walk where they want to go in, say, New York. And then you also, so that cuts out a lot of the traffic that you would have with those people more spread out. And also you have a defined public transportation system in New York as well, where there's the subway, and people are getting more into buses now because they've sort of abandoned the subway. But the subway still made them superior to a lot of other places about this. But and the more you have on public transportation basically means that you're paying for, or you're using energy which would be the amount of energy you would use for one person to move hundreds of people. And that is essentially cutting down the biggest use of energy in the country, which is, of course, driving. If you looked on a survey of North Carolina, a couple years ago, they would say the biggest polluter in North Carolina is cars. I live in North Carolina. I do drive a lot, and I'm hoping that I might get an electric car sometime in the next 2 years, but to prevent unnecessary waste, I'm waiting until this car dies. And it's an interesting thing, to say the least. So let's see. Counterpoint 2. Coelg, coco whelg, ohilch, coelg fa, coco whelg g angle. So it says, less cities creates, sorry, I think I made a typo, creates, sorry, less cities creates less good cities for nature. So Coco Whale is cities for nature. So, well, let's say environments. And that's, ChatGPT said this was true also, because when you have a, I actually read an article several years ago. I don't know if this is the same article that ChatGPT found, but it was an article on Facebook. They say that the edges of forests that are created by suburbs. So suburbs have like a bunch, it's basically a city with a bunch of forests in the middle of it. And because it creates these tiny forests, animals that hunt on the edges of forests, like birds of prey, will have more places to go, and that means that the animals that they eat will have less places to go, or fewer places to go. I think, well, it's not really quantitative, so I guess it would be less places to go, or less land to go to. But the that's basically the argument there. Then you have Whalg Angai Eighth Langog Angle. So the word for humans and animals is the same, and that word carries over to Anguli. So I made Langog Angle animals of, or which is animals of nature. And so that means cars kill animals, and that is true. And that's also it's also an interesting point that cars tend to kill more animals in, well, I don't know if they do, but it seems like if you look at like where there might be animals dead on the road, it's in smaller roads where people go more slowly, mostly. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it even really means that there is, or maybe the highway just cleans up more. But I think people tend to have more accidents when they go more slowly in general as well, which I have heard from my parents. So maybe like, maybe there are, there's just more smaller roads, or people, or the animals see less of a threat when the cars are moving slowly, but it's still in reality a threat, or something like that. We don't know. I didn't research this. Counterpoint 3. Le close so means circle. Gehilchog Elling, including angle gleich alhach o hilch. So literally that means a closed circle of machines is better than including nature in the plans. And that is something ChatGPT would not confirm, because normally there is a desire for so my designs for Anlia generally include nanotechnology in a way that will actually replace nature's use in our lives with closed circuit nanotechnology, so that there's, everything that we produce is recycled, or every piece of trash or every molecule of trash that we produce goes right back into manufacturing. And or of course that would be much simpler with the Stardust printer, but in reality, when you have something like that, they don't really tend to do this with nanotechnology yet, because nanotechnology is not there yet in terms of its technological prowess. So they tend to take things like algae, and they'll take like, for example, there was this city planning thing that they did recently where they took algae and put it inside of a fish tank, an aerated fish tank, and they stuck the fish tank in the middle of a city block. And this is because algae is more effective at producing oxygen and destroying carbon dioxide than trees are, and they wanted as efficient a way to do that as possible, because they didn't want to give up too much land for trees, I guess. And and I think that it's important that we create closed loops, and that's what really makes us imitate nature. But if we just use nature to do that, it becomes a problem, because if we start like multiplying some sort of rare bacteria that digest plastic, if we start multiplying some rare bacteria that digest plastic, to run in our factories and then digest the plastic and put it back in the ecosystem, what you have is a highly invasive bacteria which can take over way more than we control. And you have also raw materials that are throwing off the balance of nature again, but in a different direction, because it's producing those byproducts. And it's not so much that that nature doesn't know how to use the byproduct. I mean, I think it would probably be better if nature had no relation to the byproducts of human consumption, because then they wouldn't be able to throw off any balances. But that would also mean they wouldn't break down naturally. You'd have to use technology to break them down. I'm unsure, however, if the economic principles are there for that. Because if every time you move something up the supply chain, you have to add more money, because the money goes to the people who use it, and it gets more and more expensive, then I mean, closing that loop is going to make the prices skyrocket out of control, unless you facetiously convince everyone that they're trash, or that taking their trash is a service to them, and that they're not selling it back to you. But I go on. Conclusion. Anlai ankofa thu gleog an angel glau separating angel gelangog u angel angolko. Sorry, angolko geglau. Coco le enth ge angel u enfa. So, let's break that down, because there it says some variety of things in Anguli. So, Anlia, new word, Ankofa, so is Ankofa is better, so that's the more good. Thu, meaning verb of glailg, verb of hand, is better at helping, angle, environment, glau, now, or while, separating the land of humans from the natural ideas of today. Coco le'eth ge'engel u'efa. So, is and the natural ideas of today, and the ideas of nature that exist today are hurting nature. Or they're making nature worse. So, I do have some bonus arguments, and they are very, they're arguments that I've made a lot because I talk about this a lot, but I think they're a little tired, and they are not very relevant to the specific thing. But the bonus one, ke hoeng enko utlach, engo tlach gewelg angai u lehwolch gehwolch coco coing tlach. So, essentially, there are three things we're comparing here. We're comparing, and I've made this point before, I don't really have a source for it now, but we're comparing cars, which are standard now, very big polluter, to fire, like a campfire, which humans have been using for millions of years, and to cook food and things. And that fire produces, burning wood specifically, produces a lot of hydrocarbons and a lot of things that are worse for the environment than what come out after the catalytic converter of the car. And that is, I mean, the car probably uses more, but but we get better at burning cleanly over time. And the third thing is solar power. So solar power eventually going to power, if solar power is eventually going to power our cars with, via our electric batteries, and that basically cuts out all the emissions. So, and even now with the electric cars powered by coal plants, that cuts out more of the emissions than burning oil. So we get better over time at burning cleanly, or even cutting out emissions entirely. And I think that most of the time when people advocate being in harmony with nature, they say they want to go back to the land. And they say, and they're implying that they want to use campfires for cooking all the time, and also, go back to a general older technology, which is less clean, but they don't know that. And the issue is, for me, is, I want more independence. I want more independence from nature. And that brings me to the second bonus point. Sil engel coco elwa ilgi en coco o i serve elwa by, this is taken from English, eglau he ech engalk oki en ko wilg fa eglau he ech wa oki. Very complicated. I was not reading that with the right intonation because I lose track of what it means, but it's but I know what it means. And it's a provocative metaphor that I've used before, and that's, if nature is your mother, you're not going to serve your mother or her well-being by never moving out of her house. And it might even be worse than that relative to nature, because it's more like you're never moving out of her womb. And if you were an adult and you never moved out of your mother's womb, that would be a serious medical problem, if you catch my drift. And I think there is a name for that, but I don't know what it is. Anyway, see you in the future, Battin.